My name is Harper Lane, 35 years old. My parents never gave anything freely. Not love, not praise, not even basic kindness. Everything growing up came with a condition attached. A favor owed, a debt logged somewhere in an invisible ledger only they could see. If you help us more, they will get gifts, my mother said this year, like she was offering me a deal on layaway. She meant my kids, my children's Christmas presents, tied directly to how much money I wired her. She said it so casually, as if she were explaining store policy. I knew exactly what she meant. Last year, I sent them $2,000 a month for 6 months. Not because they needed it. Their house is paid off. My dad still works part-time. They have no real debts. But they have this way of talking about money that makes it sound like I'm paying off some moral obligation, as if supporting them financially is simply the natural role of a good daughter. You know we sacrificed so much when you were young, Mom would say. We didn't have help. You're lucky you can help us now. Lucky. I used to believe her. This year, things changed. Not for them, for us. For my actual family. Me, my boyfriend Caleb, and our 2 kids, Lily and Noah. We had several unexpected expenses hit at once. Car repairs, medical co-pays, a school trip we'd promised Lily she could go on. We could no longer afford to send $2,000 a month. We could barely manage $1,000. I thought they'd understand. Parents, after all, right? They didn't. A week after I stopped sending the extra money, my mother called. What about Christmas presents? She asked, voice airy, like she was asking about the weather. Presents for who? I asked, already knowing. For the kids, of course, she said. We have to plan, Harper. Things are tighter this year. My grip on the phone tightened. You're not buying them presents? I asked, bracing myself. Well, we have to be fair, she said, in that condescending tone she uses when she's about to justify something ugly. Last year you gave more. This year, we just can't afford to be as generous. You understand, right? By fair, she meant my kids would be punished because I sent less money. By we can't afford, she meant we won't choose to. I closed my eyes. Mom, are you seriously telling me you're buying presents for Olivia's kids, but not mine, because I sent less money this year? Olivia, my older sister, the golden child. She hasn't sent them a dime, ever. But her 4 kids get the royal treatment. Mom sighed dramatically. Harper, don't be difficult. It's nothing personal. It's just the way things worked out this year. Maybe if things get better next year. I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. When I told Caleb, he stared at me for a long moment. They wouldn't really do that to the kids, he said slowly. They're bluffing. It's Christmas. Are you sure? I asked. He paused. I want to be. We'd already agreed to spend Christmas at my parents' house. We'd promised the kids. I didn't want to assume the worst. A part of me, some small, stubborn part that still believed in the myth of family, hoped he was right. Maybe it was just a manipulation tactic. Maybe they just wanted to scare me into sending more. Maybe they'd buy the gifts anyway. They weren't bluffing. Christmas morning, my parents' house looked like something out of a holiday movie. The tree glittered with white lights and coordinated ornaments. The smell of cinnamon and pine drifted through the warm air. A fire crackled in the fireplace, even though the heating was already turned up too high. They greeted us at the door with big smiles. There's my girl, Dad said, hugging me like we hadn't argued at all. Mom kissed my cheek, then pulled Lily and Noah into over-enthusiastic embraces. Our babies are here, she crooned, as if the previous phone call had never existed. My sister Olivia was already there, perched on the couch with a mug of coffee like a queen surveying her kingdom. Her 4 children were on the floor, drowning in shiny wrapping paper and new toys. The heap of presents around them was obscene. Remote control cars, dolls, craft kits, electronic tablets, all labeled from Grandma and Grandpa. My parents stood nearby, watching proudly, soaking in the chaos like it was their personal achievement. Lily and Noah rushed toward the tree, eyes wide, the way they always had. They searched for gifts with their names on them, fingers tracing tags, faces glowing. Then their expressions shifted. The glow faded, their hands stilled. There were no presents under the tree for them. Not one. Something clenched in my chest so tight I almost couldn't breathe. Caleb's hand brushed mine. When I looked at him, his jaw was set, his expression unreadable. He knew. He'd believed in the best version of my parents until that moment. Now he was watching the real one unwrap itself. Mom, suddenly very interested in adjusting a garland, avoided my eyes. She leaned in close and whispered, We weren't going to say anything in front of the kids, but you understand, right? Things are just different this year. I looked at her like she was a stranger. Are you serious? I kept my voice low, but it was shaking. You really didn't get them anything? My dad shrugged, turning back to his coffee. Harper, let's not make a scene. It's Christmas. Behind me, Lily tugged on my sleeve. Mom, she asked, voice small, where are our presents? Noah stood next to her, his little brow furrowed. For the first time in his life, he didn't look excited on Christmas morning. He looked like he'd done something wrong. My eyes burned. I knelt down to their level, forcing my voice to stay calm. They left them at home, sweetie, I lied. It's okay. We'll have presents later. Noah's lower lip quivered. Lily just nodded, but her shoulders sank. Caleb bent down and whispered something to them. Something about pancakes later, movies, presents waiting at home. Anything to anchor them to a softer reality than the one my parents had just shoved them into. I stood up and turned back to my parents. We're leaving, I said. Mom's head snapped toward me. Don't be ridiculous. Dad set his coffee mug down a little too hard. Harper, don't start drama. You're going to ruin Christmas. I'm not ruining anything, I said. You already did. Olivia watched all of this with mild interest, as if she were seeing a scene from a show she wasn't fully invested in. One of her kids peeled the wrapping off a new tablet. Caleb met my eyes. We didn't need words. We moved. Kids, I said gently, get your coats. They obeyed slowly, still confused, but grateful for the clear instructions. Mom followed us to the door, hissing, You're overreacting. We said maybe next year we can do more. Things are tight. For you? I whispered back. Or for me? She didn't answer. We got Lily and Noah into the car. Buckles clicked, doors shut. The air outside bit at my cheeks, but felt cleaner than anything inside that house. As I pulled away from the curb, my hands were gripping the steering wheel so tightly they hurt. The kids were quiet in the back seat in the way kids are only quiet when they've been hurt and don't have the words for it yet. Halfway down the road, my phone started ringing. Mom, then Mom again, then Dad, then Olivia. Caleb glanced at the screen, then at me. They're not going to let this go, he murmured. I nodded once. I know. So instead of going home, I turned into the parking lot of a little diner we used to go to when I was a kid. One of those old school places with red vinyl booths, a jukebox that barely worked, and a slightly crooked Christmas tree in the corner. We slid into a booth. The kids stared at the menu like they didn't quite understand why we were there. All right, Caleb said, forcing a smile. Christmas pancakes, extra whipped cream. Noah nodded, eyes brightening just a little. Lily just stirred her hot chocolate, watching the bubbles rise and pop. My phone buzzed again. Dad, I answered this time. What? I said. You embarrassed your mother, he said, skipping hello entirely. Walking out like that was cruel. I let out a short, bitter laugh. Cruel? You think I'm cruel? You are being dramatic, he said. You could have handled this in private. Instead, you made a show out of it. You just let my kids stand there, I said quietly, and watch their cousins open present after present while you knew they had nothing, and I'm the cruel one? He sighed, the long, heavy sigh he uses before pretending to be reasonable. Harper, it wasn't about the money. Then what was it about? I snapped. Because it sure as hell wasn't about love. There was silence on the line. Finally, he said, we didn't think they'd notice. Something inside me twisted so sharply I had to close my eyes. You didn't think they'd notice, I repeated. They're 7 and 5, Dad, not furniture. Another silence, this one heavier. I took a breath, kept my voice low for the kids' sake. We're done here, I said. Don't call me again. And then, for the first time in my life, I hung up on my father. The diner smelled like syrup and burnt coffee, the way it always had when I was a kid. Back then, this place was a treat. Pancakes after report cards, cheap burgers when Mom didn't feel like cooking. It was where Dad used to flip sugar packets into the air and catch them, making Lily laugh before she was even born, back when he still tried. Now, the Christmas tree in the corner leaned slightly to one side, a few of its lights flickering. A dusty plastic angel perched on top, tilting as if she'd seen too much. Noah sat across from me, feet not quite touching the floor, cheeks pink from the cold. Lily was next to him, both hands wrapped around her hot chocolate like it was anchoring her to the earth. Caleb slid into the booth beside me. He glanced at the kids, then at me. Okay, he said softly, forcing brightness into his voice. We're doing Christmas pancakes. Extra whipped cream, chocolate chips, syrup, the whole chaos. Noah nodded eagerly. With sprinkles? With sprinkles, Caleb confirmed. Lily didn't say anything. She stared into her cup, stirring slowly, the whipped cream melting into a swirl of white and brown. I watched her and felt something in my chest crack a little more. I had tried so hard to shield them from the worst of my parents. I had swallowed remarks, swallowed guilt, swallowed pride. I'd told myself that whatever my parents did to me, they'd never do to my kids. I was wrong. The waitress came over with a tired smile and a Santa pin on her apron. She wrote down our order, wished us a Merry Christmas with a kind of weary sincerity that almost made me cry, then vanished into the kitchen. My phone sat on the table, screen down, vibrating every few minutes like it was trying to crawl back into my life. Lily finally looked up. "Mom?" she asked. "Yeah, baby?" "Did we do something wrong?" The question was so soft I almost missed it. I swallowed hard. "No," I said immediately. "You didn't do anything wrong. None of this is your fault." "Then why didn't Grandma and Grandpa get us presents?" Noah chimed in, brow furrowing. "We were good. I didn't even fight with Lily about the tablet." I forced a breath in. Out. "Sometimes," I said carefully, "grown-ups make bad choices. They think about themselves more than they think about other people's feelings." "That's mean," Lily whispered. "Yeah," I said, "it is." The phone buzzed again. Caleb slid his hand over mine under the table, grounding me. "You don't have to pick up," he said. "I know," I murmured. "That's why I'm going to." I flipped the phone over. Dad's name flashed again, relentless. I answered and put it to my ear. "I thought I told you not to call me again," I said quietly. "Harper," he said, his voice dropping into that rehearsed parental disappointment tone. "You need to stop this. You embarrassed your mother. Do you know how she looked after you walked out? People were staring. You humiliated her." I let out a bitter laugh. "You let my kids sit in front of your tree on Christmas morning with nothing, while their cousins opened gift after gift, and I'm the one who humiliated someone." "We didn't think they'd notice," he said again, like that somehow made it better. "They're not props," I snapped. "They're not decorative background children. They are your grandchildren." He sighed, shifted gears. "We weren't trying to hurt anyone. You're blowing this out of proportion. You could have handled this privately. Instead, you stormed out and made a scene. That was cruel." I felt my hand tremble, and Caleb's fingers tightened on mine. "Cruel," I repeated. "You think I'm cruel?" "Harper." "You weaponized Christmas," I said. "You turned it into a punishment because I wouldn't pay you enough. You used my kids to send me a message, and now you want to talk to me about cruelty?" There was silence on the line, just the low hum of whatever room he was in. Finally, I said it. "We're done here, Dad. Don't call me again." "Don't be rash," he snapped. "We're family. You can't just decide—" "I can," I said. "I just did." I hung up. The phone buzzed almost immediately. Mom this time. I silenced it, turned it face down, and pushed it to the far edge of the table. The pancakes arrived. Huge stacks, whipped cream, piled like snowdrifts, syrup pooling on chipped white plates. The kids' eyes widened despite themselves. Caleb made a show out of sprinkling extra sugar on Noah's plate, drawing a goofy face in the syrup for Lily. "See?" he said brightly. "Told you Christmas pancakes could fix almost anything." Lily managed a small smile. Noah dove into his with the intensity of someone making up for lost time. I watched them eat, watched the way the hurt slowly shifted into concentration on the food, on the moment. Kids are resilient, but sometimes that resilience just looks like pushing everything down into the quiet parts of themselves. We finished breakfast and drove home. The living room looked different in the fading afternoon light. Our tree, our presents, our slightly crooked star, the stockings Lily had decorated with more glitter than should legally be allowed. We placed the gifts we had gotten for them under our tree. Not a mountain, not extravagant, but thoughtful. The book Lily had talked about for weeks. The dinosaur set Noah had pointed out every time we passed the toy aisle. New pajamas, art supplies, small things chosen with them in mind, not with control in mind. When they opened them, they smiled, really smiled this time. That helped. Caleb put on a Christmas movie, dimmed the lights, and we curled up together under a blanket on the couch. Somewhere between the second act of animated reindeer drama and the hot chocolate round two, Lily leaned her head on my shoulder. "Mom," she said quietly. "Yeah? Thank you for taking us home." My throat tightened. "There's nowhere else I'd rather be," I whispered back. Later that evening, there was a knock at the door. Not loud, not aggressive, hesitant, almost apologetic. Caleb paused the movie. The kids looked over, half curious, half wary. I opened the door. My mother stood there, clutching a shopping bag in both hands like a peace offering. Her makeup was smudged just enough to suggest she'd been crying. I wasn't sure whether it was real or tactical. "What are you doing here?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. "I brought presents," she said, lifting the bag an inch. "For the kids." My arms crossed almost on instinct. "Oh, you have presents now." She shifted, uncomfortable. Your sister said you overreacted, she replied. But then I thought about it, and maybe we made a mistake. Behind me, I felt Claire, no, in this version, Caleb, step into the doorway's shadow, arms crossed, silent but present. You think? He said dryly. Mom shot him a look, then turned back to me. Harper, I don't want to fight. It's Christmas. Let's not drag this out. I took the bag from her and opened it. My stomach sank. Inside were cheap, last-minute toys. A plastic doll with hair already tangled in the packaging. A tiny car from one of those dollar bins near the cash register. A flimsy coloring book with half the pages wrinkled. No wrapping paper, no tags, no effort. It looked like she'd grabbed whatever was left on a gas station shelf on the way over. Lily appeared at my side, peering up at the bag. What is it, Mom? She asked. I looked at the toys, at my mother's face, at my daughter. Nothing, sweetheart, I said softly. Just some things we don't need. Mom's face fell. Harper! You weren't sorry, I said quietly. You just didn't like the way it looked when we left. You weren't thinking about them. You were thinking about your image. That's not fair, she snapped. You embarrassed us in front of everyone. No, I cut in. You embarrassed yourself. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She opened her mouth again, then saw Caleb standing there behind me, and something in her expression shifted. Not remorse. Calculation. She knew this version of me, this version of us, wasn't alone anymore. All you care about is winning, I said. Control. Whoever sends the most money, whoever bends the most, gets the good grandparent package. I'm not playing anymore. We stood there in this doorway, the cold air sneaking around us. The movie soundtrack drifted faintly from the living room. For a moment, I thought she might say something real, something honest, something like, "You're right, I'm sorry, I was wrong." Instead, she said nothing. She just turned and walked away, leaving the bag of junk toys in my hands. I closed the door. Caleb slipped an arm around my shoulders. You okay? I let out a long breath I hadn't realized I was holding. I will be, I said, eventually. We threw the toys away. We went back to the couch, back to the warm blanket, back to our kids who were laughing at a cartoon snowman. The pain in my chest was still there, but it felt cleaner somehow. This, I realized, watching Lily and Noah giggle again, was my real family. And I wasn't going to let my parents ruin another holiday. The next morning, I woke with a clarity so sharp it almost felt physical, like someone had lifted a foggy film off the world overnight. For the first time in years, I wasn't waking up to dread or guilt or the list of who needed money from me that day. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, scrolled through the messages from my parents with a kind of detached curiosity, like I was reading someone else's drama. Mom had sent nearly a dozen texts overnight. I think you misunderstood. You didn't have to embarrass us. Olivia is worried sick. If we can just talk calmly, you ruined Christmas. You owe us that much. Dad had sent just one. Let's not make any rash decisions. That one made me laugh out loud. They thought I was bluffing. They thought if they ignored what happened, ignored two heartbroken kids sitting in front of an empty tree, then I'd eventually cave, call back, apologize, send more money to smooth things over. They thought I was still old Harper, the one who handled everything, paid everything, never argued, never pushed back. They had no idea she died somewhere between the Christmas tree and the diner pancakes. I dialed my mother's number. She picked up on the first ring, too fast, too eager. Harper, I knew you'd come to your senses. Let's talk about this little misunderstanding. There's nothing to talk about, I said calmly. I just wanted to let you know I'm not sending you any more money. Silence. Then she laughed. Not nervous laughter. Dismissive, disbelieving. Oh, Harper, don't be ridiculous. Of course you're still going to help us. That's what family does. I sipped my coffee. Funny. I thought family was about love and support, not punishing grandchildren for money. Her voice sharpened instantly. You're still upset? Over a few presents? No, I said. I'm upset about years of being manipulated, and I'm done. She scoffed. So this is your punishment? You're cutting us off over a misunderstanding? No, I said. I'm cutting you off because I've been underreacting for years. There was a beat of shocked silence before Dad suddenly got on the line, his voice dripping with that fake calm tone he uses when he's trying to orchestrate a guilt trip. Harper, he said, you're emotional right now. We can work this out. We're family. You wouldn't do this to your own parents. I would, I said. I am, and I just did. Static. Then Mom's anger returned, full force. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? I actually laughed. After everything you've done for me, you mean the decades of guilt about how much you sacrificed? The way you've treated me like your retirement plan? The way Olivia does nothing and still gets treated like royalty while I pay your bills? That's different, Mom snapped. Yeah, I said, it really is. And then I hung up. At first, they assumed I was joking. A week passed, then two. No money, no apologizing, no bending to their manipulation. And they cracked. The messages started subtle. We thought you were better than this. Your sister is so disappointed. We didn't think our own daughter would let us down. Then came the guilt bombs. We might have to start selling things to survive. We're struggling to make ends meet. Total lies. They weren't struggling. They had retirement savings. Dad still had his part-time job. Zero debt. Zero need for my money. But they hated losing control. Eventually, when the guilt didn't work, they escalated. It happened on a Wednesday morning. I woke up to nearly 20 missed calls from my sister Olivia. Before I could process the notifications, my doorbell rang. Caleb peeked through the blinds. It's Olivia, he said quietly. Before I could react, she shoved her way inside, coat still on, hair a mess, face flushed with anger. You need to fix this, she snapped. To fix what exactly? I asked, arms crossed. She threw up her hands dramatically. Mom's a mess. Dad's furious. They keep saying you abandoned them, and honestly, it's kind of messed up. They're old, Harper. They need you. I blinked. Mom is 56, Liv. She runs 5Ks. She's not exactly frail. That's not the point, she fired back. She's been having health issues. Blood pressure. Stress. Crying all night. She can barely sleep with everything going on. For a moment, a small moment, I felt a pang of guilt. Then, as she continued, I saw it. That micro smirk. The one Olivia always got when she thought she'd landed a manipulative blow. She was lying. Or stretching the truth into some melodramatic performance she hoped would break me. Wow, I said, you almost had me. Her eyes narrowed. What does that mean? It means I've seen this play before, I replied. Suddenly, Mom is sick, conveniently right after I stop sending money? She is sick, Olivia insisted. No, I said evenly. She's upset she lost control, and she sent you here because she knows you're the one who will push the hardest. Olivia scoffed. You're being impossible. No, I said, I'm being done. She stared at me, furious, offended, confused, then grabbed her purse and stormed out. Caleb raised an eyebrow from the couch. Feel good? I exhaled. It felt like oxygen. 2 days later, Mom called. I answered out of morbid curiosity. Her voice was trembling, too trembling. Harper, she sniffled. Your father fell down the stairs. My stomach tightened, briefly, until her wording caught up to me. Is he in the hospital? I asked. A pause. No, but he's in pain. And Harper, we can't keep doing this. We're getting older. We need support. We need you. I rubbed my temples. Mom, Dad is 60. He plays golf every weekend. He's fine. He probably tripped because he refuses to turn on lights. Her voice dropped to a wounded whisper. You don't believe me. I believe he tripped, I said. I don't believe this suddenly means you're too frail to function. She inhaled sharply. We can't keep the house. It's too much. Bills, repairs, taxes. Sell it, I said. The silence after that was ice cold. I can't believe you just said that, she snapped. I can't believe you used my kids as bargaining chips, I replied. Her tone hardened. Fine. Be cruel. Be heartless. But don't expect us to be there when you need family. I smirked to myself. Like you were there for my kids on Christmas? She hung up. For a while, everything was quiet. Too quiet. Then, one night, Caleb nudged me while scrolling through Facebook. Harper, you should see this. My mother had posted, It's devastating when your own child turns on you after everything you've sacrificed. Growing old is terrifying when the people you raised decide you're no longer worth their time. A disappointed face emoji topped it off like a garnish. The comments section was a buffet of sympathy. So sorry, Mama. Some kids are just ungrateful. You deserve better. Sending prayers. And there at the bottom, dripped in passive aggression. From Olivia. I tried talking to her mom. She just doesn't care. I don't know who she is anymore. I stared at the screen. Not angry, not hurt. Just done. Caleb watched me with a half smile. Thinking what I think you're thinking. I cracked my knuckles. Yep. I typed. Interesting. Didn't see this energy when you ignored your grandkids on Christmas because I didn't send enough money. But sure, play the victim. Hope it gets you the sympathy cash you're actually looking for. I hit send. Within 5 minutes, the entire post was deleted. Caleb chuckled. Well, that was fast. I leaned back, an unexpected lightness blooming in my chest. For the first time in years, I felt free. It's funny how quickly peace becomes addictive. Once the noise stops, once the manipulation stops, once the panic stops, you start realizing how much of your life was spent putting out fires someone else started. For 2 glorious weeks, there was nothing. No calls, no guilt trips, no urgent crises that magically aligned with their bills. No Olivia banging on my door, no Facebook theatrics. My parents were quieter than they had been in my entire adult life, and I loved it. For the first time, I had space to focus on my family, on Caleb, on Lily and Noah, on the life we'd built despite the constant drain from the outside. We'd been driving the same beat-up SUV for years, the kind where the air conditioning only worked if you kicked it, and every time you turned right, something in the back made a noise that sounded like a squirrel choking. We kept putting off buying a new car because, well, there was always another crisis, another emergency, another just this 1 month, sweetheart. But now there were no more crises, at least not ones that belonged to me. So we went shopping. Caleb test drove the first SUV and came back with that little boy grin he almost never let himself show. Lily sat in the back whispering, "It smells like new shoes." Noah giggled at the seat warmers. By the end of the day, we drove off the lot in a fully loaded, top-tier SUV with heated seats, automatic everything, and enough safety features to make me feel like our entire life was finally moving forward instead of constantly patching holes. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't a brag. It was freedom. I posted a picture, nothing dramatic, nothing aimed at anyone, just a simple caption. "Merry, late Christmas to us. Can't wait for new adventures." I didn't even think about my parents when I posted it, but they thought about me. The call came less than an hour later. My mother, of course. I almost ignored it. Almost. But I was curious. I wanted to hear which manipulation tactic we were using today. I answered. She didn't bother with greetings. "Are you kidding me?" she hissed. "A brand new car? And you're telling us you can't afford to help your own parents?" Ah, jealousy and outrage. Classic combo. I leaned back on the couch. "Mom, you don't need my help. You just don't like that I finally stopped letting you take advantage of me." "Oh, don't be dramatic," she snapped. "We gave you everything growing up. The least you can do is support us now that we're getting older." "You're 56, I said flatly. "You're not elderly. You're not sick. You're not helpless. You just want control." "That's not true," she shot back. "Your father works so hard." "Part-time," I corrected, "by choice, with zero debt and a fully paid-off house." "That's not the point," she exploded. "Oh, it absolutely is," I said. "You wanted me to feel guilty, and I did. For decades. But not anymore." She went quiet. Then, with careful, wounded precision, her favorite move, she said, "You've changed. I don't even recognize you anymore." I smiled, not with joy, just with truth. "You mean I stopped being the daughter you could manipulate?" "Yeah, I guess I did change." Silence. Then she played her last card, the fine, "you're the cruel one" card. "Well, if this is how you really feel about your family, I guess we have nothing left to say to each other." "Guess not," I said, and hung up. And for a moment, it felt final. But with my parents, it's never final. 3 days later, Olivia called. Her voice was triumphant, sugar-dipped venom. "Just thought you should know," she began. "Mom and Dad updated their will." I rubbed my forehead. "Okay." "They removed you, Harper," she said slowly, savoring the words. "You and your kids. Gone. Everything goes to me now." I had to stifle a laugh. "Olivia," I said, "I don't want anything from them." Dead silence. "You what?" she sputtered. "I don't want their money," I repeated. "Keep it. Enjoy it." She tried to regroup. "Well, good, because everything was left to me, and, I continued, have fun when they're actually old and start demanding the kind of help I've been giving them for years." Another beat of silence. "You're going to regret this," she snapped, voice shaking. "You really are." "Pretty sure I won't," I said and hung up. And that was the last time I heard from any of them. No more calls. No more texts. No more sudden emergencies or guilt-drenched voicemails. Nothing. My parents thought they were punishing me by cutting me out of their will. They thought they were hurting me, disinheriting me, removing me, erasing me. But in reality, they gave me exactly what I wanted. No expectations, no obligations, no leverage, no strings. For the first time in my life, they freed me